everybody, welcome again to my channel. Thanks for the click. I hope you are doing well. So as you can see in this episode, we are going to talk about some relative pronouns, not all the relative pronouns, but we are going to focus on two a little bit more confusing relative pronouns. Relative pronouns we use with place, right? With place. Now in general, when we talk about place, when we hear the word place, our minds go directly to where, okay, to where. So we use where with places, either for questions or even in clauses, okay, in clauses when we use the relative pronouns, okay, in clauses, right? Now, do we use only where for a place? No, we can also use which for a place, right? So today we are going to see the differences between where and which when it comes to places, okay, when it comes to places. So when we talk about place, we can talk about something like, for example, school, for instance, or we can talk about home or house, for instance. We can talk about a bank, for instance, as an example, all right, bank. We can talk about street, all right, okay, street. We can talk about forest, all right. We can talk about town, for example, town. So all these are examples, okay. So these are, as you can see, examples of places, all right. So when we use such examples of places in clauses, we use either which or where. Or where, very simply, because these are, as I said, places, okay, places. Now, a lot of students and learners find it difficult to distinguish between where and which when it is used when we talk about place, because they know that for a place we always use where. No, we can also use which. Now, let's look at these two very simple examples to understand the difference between which and where for places. All right, now let's start with number one. I remember the school where I studied. So here we are talking about the school, okay? And here we have the relative pronoun where, okay? Because this one is, as I said, a place. This is very simple. Now let's go to number two, Paris. Paris is a city, okay? It's a city, it is another place, which is the capital city of France, is a nice city, right? Now look, here we have again, this is a place, okay? This is a place, like this one, it is a place, both of them places, but here we are using which, okay? Which with place. Now look at the difference, look at the following clause, okay? The following clause, I studied. Now studying, working, playing, these are things that we do. So these have to do with doing, all right? Something that we do in the place. And therefore, when we talk about where is always when we talk about something that we do. So this is something to do with doing in that place, okay? Doing in the place. So I remember the school where I studied in the school. So studying is something that we do in the school, like working, for example, like playing, and so on and so forth. These are things that we do. So when we are talking about something that we do in that place, where, okay? Now let's go to number two, which is the capital of France, which is the capital of France, which is big, which is nice, which is good. Now here, what are we doing here? We are describing, we can say describing or defining, okay? Or defining. Defining what? Describing and defining the place. Defining or describing the place. So very simply, when we are talking about a place and defining it or describing it, we use which. So this is for describing or, as I said before, defining, okay, or defining, right? Sometimes you can use some verbs like, for instance, go or go to, and visit, So these are two different verbs that we can also use with place, okay, with place. So go or go to, and visit. Always go or go to with where, and visit with which. Okay, with which. For example, we can say Paris, which I visited last year. Paris, which I visited last year, not where I visited, no. Which I visited last year is a nice city, okay, is a nice city, all right? So we can write that. So we can say, for example, Paris, I visited last year is a nice city. Okay, now look here, we can say, what are we going to say, where or which? Very simply, we're going to use which I visited. Okay, which I visited. So always with the verb visit, we use which. Okay, with go or go to, the verb where, the pronoun where. Okay, for example, Paris, where I went last year. Where I went last year. The same, we can write it. So we can say Paris. Okay, Paris, I went last year. Okay, last year is a nice city. So here we can say where I went last year. Very simply, because here we have the verb go in the past, right? So with visit, we use which, and with go, we use where, okay? So just remember, we use where with places when we are talking about something that we do in that place. For example, here we are talking about this school in terms of studying. So studying is something that I did in that place, okay? So we can talk about studying, we can talk about playing, we can talk about working, meeting people, etc. So these are things that we do, okay? We do in the place. So when we talk about doing, where, okay? And for example, if you go to this one, Paris, which is the capital city of France, is a nice city. So which is the capital? So here I am just describing or defining the place. So when we are talking about a place and you're defining that place, you use which, okay? Just keep in mind the difference between go or go to and visit. So visit with which, and go or go to with where. Just like here, Paris, which I visited last year, is a nice city, or Paris, where I went, or where I go is a nice city, okay? This is very easy to remember. I hope you find this lesson very simple to understand. If you have any question or suggestion, don't hesitate to let me know. I'm going to put some exercises, sentences to complete with where and which in the description. Don't forget to do that. See you in another episode, in another lesson. Have a good time and goodbye.